Book 2, Chapter 23, Drumpf under pressure, Persia under threat. St. Bernard, unrepentant. Drumpf was under pressure. Subpoenas were flying, bluffs were being called, judges were ruling against him. Blue cheeks in the lower chamber were closing in for the kill. Fancy Pelosi had gone so far as to call for an intervention. A supporter of Drumpf had kindly remixed a tape of Fancy to make her appear a drunk, sucking on her dentures, which had been gratifyingly widely shared. But that could not conceal the fact that she'd suggested that he was a dragon lacking the cojones to attempt a major infrastructure initiative. Drumpf turned to the tried and tested remedy of all political ills, a war. Nothing like a general bloodletting to clear the air, silence the opposition, and endear a failing leader to his or her military-industrial complex. Plus, this war, with the ancient state of Persia as the target, would have the overtones of a medieval crusade, deeply appealing to Drumpf's deranged religious following, proving again that the greater the ignorance, the stronger the opinions. It mattered not that there was not the slightest reason for war to be waged with a land that was fully in compliance with the nuclear treaty that Drumpf himself had broken. Drumpf commanded that 120,000 troops be moved to the region just in case of a Persian provocation, safe in the certainty that such a provocation could be manufactured. He itched to carpet bomb the land of flying carpets. In the primaries, the news divided candidates vying to be the next sovereign. Some, like Bunny Warren, expressed dismay. Others, like Joe Biden, struggled to express anything coherent, possibly impeded by the sheer amount of work that had turned his face into a mask. Meanwhile, journalists in the midstream media, thriving as they did on conflict of any sort, had discovered a treasure trove of videos, personal papers and old press clippings that they hoped would cast St. Bernard in an evil light. Had he not, in an earlier century, been at a stadium where another population, in receipt of death squads from the land, had expressed dissatisfaction with the land's foreign policy? How could he defend his behaviour in attempting to stop nuclear war and illegal foreign adventures? In response, looking like the least penitent person possible, St. Bernard had himself filmed strolling through one of the corridors of power along which he often sprinted, hands tucked behind his back, impersonating Prince Charles, another king-in-waiting, and declaring that if preferring diplomatic solutions to armed carnage was a fault, he pleaded guilty to it. He gave interviews all over the place, insisting that war with Persia would make earlier wars look trivial in comparison, and that the land would be drawn into a conflict without end that would further destabilise a powder keg. Meanwhile, the simple people fell on the fading videos and almost illegible handwritten notes with delight. Here was St. Bernard when he still had curls, being funny and endearing and romantic, and deadly, deadly serious about floating boathouses and state budget shortfalls and unrestrained private enterprises that got public subsidies, and the failing of the then king's illegal bullying of smaller countries, and the numerous court cases his council were waging against all the local miscreants, impeding his efforts to make his city a decent place to live, and banging on about all the same issues of oligarchy and healthcare as he did today. And here was more proof, if it was needed, that St. Bernard was indeed as constant as the North Star, and far brighter.